Hello and welcome to another edition of India Ideas, the show where we talk about science and tech, innovation and entrepreneurship. I'm Gautam Roy. Today we're talking about health tech helping hands, where startups in the health sector are helping manage health issues of their clients in fields as diverse as chronic lifestyle diseases and medical expenses, those of the out-of-pocket nature. Now, according to Niti Aayog, the market size of telemedicine in India alone, which is a subsector of health tech, was around $830 million in 2019 and is projected to go up to $5.5 billion, growing at a CAGR of 31% during 2020 and 2025. Another estimate says the sector will create 40 million jobs in the country by 2030 and at the same time create a fitter, healthier nation. Now, how is it all unfolding and what does it mean for the country as well as its future? To talk about it all, we have with us today Rohan Verma, co-founder and CEO, Breathe Wellbeing, which is a Gurugram-based digital therapeutics company which is looking to tackle the issue of type 2 diabetes in the country, which is a mammoth problem. Chris George is also with us, co-founder and CEO, Cube Health, which is India's fastest growing, they claim fastest growing embedded finance health tech company focused on double OPE, which is out-of-pocket medical expenditure. And we also have Vinay Bansal, founder and CEO, Inflection Point Ventures, which is one of India's largest angel platforms with over 3,500 investors and has also, taken a bet on Cube Health. Welcome to you all. First to you, Rohan. Tell us about, Breathe Wellbeing. What made you, go from a Mckenzie consultant to becoming a health tech startup co-founder? And how did you choose to target diabetes as your core business and how has it been so far?
Thanks for having me, Gautam. So at Breathe Wellbeing, we are helping 70 million Indians to prevent, manage, reverse type 2 diabetes. We have a clinically proven digital program that's structured in the form of a game through which we help these people with type 2 diabetes to control their blood glucose, reduce their HbA1c, and eventually get off all diabetes medications that they've been on for years and years. Uh, how I came about transitioning from being a McKinsey consultant to a health tech founder, I think it's been a journey. Uh, Fitness and healthcare was always close to my heart. My dad being in the Navy, mother being an educationist, and was looking to have more meaning in my work. And not
And you're a
that
certified
work was.
trainer yourself.
Yes, I'm a CrossFit level 2 trainer and a mindfulness coach as well. And we started off as a fitness venture, became digital well-being venture, selling to corporates across the Asia. And very soon we chanced upon subset of what we were doing, which was potentially a very, very large and a complex problem in type 2 diabetes, chronic diseases, because the segment of our population that we were serving in corporates, they were like the super users of our program, and they had some form of chronic condition, whether it's type 2 diabetes or hypertension or PCOD. And they unanimously loved the community aspect and the game design approach that we were using in healthcare. And why we chose type 2 diabetes and not the other therapies is something you asked as well. So my mother was a type 2 diabetic. My co-founder Aditya Kekar, we're childhood friends. We co-founded the previous venture together. We have the same team over here as well. His father was type 2 diabetic. They're very much here, but they're no longer type 2 diabetic. They were part of our
I'm
clinical
glad to know
study that
that.
we did, and they reversed their type 2 diabetes. And we thought that what we have done for our parent, maybe we can just make a lot of people experience that. And that's where the journey began of Breathe Wellbeing. And it's been 16 months now. We've been growing at over 30% month over month. And I think COVID definitely has accelerated that. Yeah.
Oh yes, it was bound to accelerate a lot of disruptive things apart from these issues as well. Mental well-being is another issue, but that's a different matter altogether. Chris, if I could come to you now, in the case of your startup, the problem of addressing out-of-pocket expenditure of patients was in plain sight for decades, and the market has had a range of solutions to offer for some time, hasn't it? Now, how and why did you choose to get into it yourselves, and how's it been so far?
Thank you, Gautam, for having me. Uh, you're absolutely right. It's been in plain sight, and unfortunately, that gap of what an insurance actually provides and what an average Indian pays for their healthcare, that gap known as out-of-pocket expenditure in healthcare or OOPE, continues to rise every year. Niti Aayog report of this year puts that number at $72 billion. Interestingly enough, just a few years ago, that number was $45 billion. So clearly, that number is expanding.
Ballooning, yes.
Ballooning, right? And interestingly, even after 35 years since insurance was introduced in our country, less than 25% of our population actually has insurance. Now, there are various reasons for that, but without going into that and addressing your question, medical finance as a product has been always around, either formally or informally, right? Informally, it's not unusual for an Indian to actually borrow to pay for healthcare. Friends and family, non-traditional means. And of course, if you have the ability, then you will use your credit card or maybe
Poor
personal
people
loans
go
to pay for it.
into debt which they're not able to service because of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Single biggest reason why Indians actually fall below the poverty line every year, because of healthcare expenses. So when we looked at it, we said, number one, borrowing for healthcare is very common. Either it is financially expensive or it is emotionally expensive. Number two, healthcare seems to be the only industry where the payer doesn't seem to have any power, right? So in retail, if you're a paying customer, they actually treat you like God. Unfortunately, in healthcare, the power rests with the provider, which is the hospital or the clinic, etc. And we wanted to change that. My own father is a cancer patient. My mom is a diabetic. Healthcare naturally was very close to me, and he lived through his adult life thinking that insurance was a tax mitigation measure, not a health risk mitigation measure, and that became the genesis.
Interesting. I mean, people need to really think very seriously about health, especially expenses as they get older, and look at solutions. If they have positive resources or if they've not set aside enough money, then all these options then become quite a possibility and they become open. Vinay, now for obvious reasons, you have put your money where your mouth would have been earlier in Cube Health, where meeting the health challenge in the country is concerned. But just tell us, because you guys get all kinds of startups approaching you. How do you decide that you want to put your money in, say, Cube Health and not in XYZ?
Sure. So I think we have two sides to a coin when we look at investing. Both are important. One is the problem that we are solving. The size of the problem, the frequency of the problem, the importance of the problem, and the willingness of the customers to pay for the problem, for the solution. Right? That I think is easy to figure out. There is data, there is math, there is demography, there is a certain number of cancer patients, certain spend, certain GDP. All that is easy. But the bigger and the tougher part is the art that we call in investing. The second part of the coin is backing the right founder. Here we have a 100-point checklist before we actually back a founder. Chris may not know it, what goes internally. Maybe he's heard it from our other investors. But for us, that is the linchpin of saying, if I have to go and fly from London to US, pilot has to be important. That's the only guy who can make me land there safely. Flights are available, the aircrafts are available, right? So we go a very deep view on the grit of the founder. What does he want to do and why? Is he willing to, drive 18 hours in a flight without blinking an eye, right? Is he going to land us safely? Is he putting everything in to do what he's trying to do? What is his needs to go behind doing that? Is he capable to do that? Does he have the right network? Does he have the right solutions? Can he put a team together? Is he a talent magnet? Can he lead a team? Can he handle investors? Can he communicate well? Can he be a shining light in front of everybody, right? And can he handle tough situations, right? Sometimes there'll be no money and sometimes there'll be no people. Sometimes there'll be no customers and sometimes the app will go and the server will break.
Yeah, that's a lot to expect for one person, which is why perhaps there's the concept of startups having multiple co-founders instead of just one founder on whom everything hinges.
Yes, that is where I think the key is for us. And congratulations to all of our 100+ portfolio companies who have really went through this rigorous process of evaluation in us finding the right founders.
Great, wonderful. Rohan, just tell us about your technology and business model as well, because and also what has been the biggest challenge so far in terms of growing the business, and to what extent has tech really helped you deal with it?
So before I dive into our business model, I think it's also important to kind of understand how we do things at Breathe Wellbeing. So the type 2 diabetes as a disease, it's a lifestyle disease, and the root cause of type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance. And we are among the three companies in the world who are reversing type 2 diabetes. It just got accredited by American Diabetes Association as well. And mostly people in India, they've just been fed this story that type 2 diabetes can never be reversed. You have to eat medication your entire life, and that's what the entire like 40,000 crores of medication in our country is. That's the premise of that, and we are saying we'll get you off medications, right?
That's
So
part of what I
actual,
wanted to ask you is how do you convince people to come on board?
yeah. Oh, that's an interesting one. It was even more interesting, exciting when we got started. So what we do at Breathe Wellbeing, we are help. So the reason why people have that type 2 diabetes is because if you ask someone why do you have type 2 diabetes, they'll be like, my sugar levels are high, right? That's the normal response. But that's like saying I have high fever. I could be having fever. Vinay could be having fever. Chris could be having fever. My fever could be because of typhoid. His fever could be because of COVID. Chris' fever could be because of malaria, something else, right? That's a symptom. So root cause is insulin resistance, where your body's ability to listen to insulin just goes down. The muscles and the receptors, they just don't listen to insulin. If they don't listen, they'll not absorb the excessive glucose present inside the bloodstream, and that is the problem. And if that is the problem, what we are doing at Breathe Wellbeing is we are helping people develop that ability to tolerate glucose, to tolerate high
Okay.
levels of glucose, to absorb that high levels of glucose. And the way we do that is we've designed a program around uh, 8 interesting reasons that lead to insulin resistance. Now, 4 are around diet, 3 are around exercise, 1 is meditation, stress reduction, and all of them are coupled are backed by evidence that the world actually believes in. So if you go deeper into it, we are helping people build that ability to tolerate glucose through uh, just the way we deliver health outcomes is it's for any outcome you need the right knowledge, the right
Okay.
awareness.
Okay.
Right knowledge and awareness is not enough. You
Hmm.
need the right feedback at the right time. That's the second thing. And for third thing is you need to be motivated. You need to be motivated to be on a journey for a period of time to get that sort of an outcome. So for our knowledge and awareness, we've built our own proven curriculum, diabetes reversal curriculum. Think of it like Udacity, Udemy for
Right.
diabetes.
Right.
Feedback, we have our own live coaching. Think of it like White Hat Senior for diabetes, and we have our own community for feedback. It's like a private community. Think of it like private Quora, private Alcoholics Anonymous for diabetes. And then for motivation, think of it like Mobile Premier League for diabetes. So when a person
Okay.
comes in, that's the sort of journey the person goes through. And eventually they build the ability to tolerate glucose. And the gold medal, the Olympic medal of diabetes reversal is a glucose tolerance test. And when they clear that, what is that? You feed someone 75 grams of sugar, and if their sugar levels do not spike up in the blood, that means they've tolerated that excessive glucose, and that's exactly what we help people build that ability. And
Okay.
so that's the program, and we
Tech and business
charge
model very quickly, please.
so what like Chris said, so people pay directly for that. Yeah, it's a direct to consumer approach. So people pay upfront for a year-long program. The program cost is 36,000. They pay for that. And we have a no outcome, no pay policy that if you don't get a reduction and see a reduction in your HbA1c, we refund your entire fees. And so far, it's been more than 10,000 reversals, and we've not had to refund anybody's fee. That's the
Okay.
kind of belief people have built.
In how much time, depends on the patient or the athlete, but in how much time ballpark can one reverse diabetes?
Typically, it depends on the incidence of the diabetes, but on average, it takes like 7.5 to 8 months.
Okay, okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Now, Chris,
Yeah.
how does your business really work? What is the business model, and to what extent do you use tech to drive it yourselves? If you offer employed Indians 0% healthcare finance through their employers, how do you make money, and are there any hidden costs?
Great. It's ironic that in our country today, you can buy a no-cost EMI cell phone or a washing machine or a television, but you can't do that for healthcare. And that is essentially what we are doing or we have done. We are focused on a B2B2C model, meaning we go and work with large employers and provide this a pre-approved no-cost EMI credit line facility up to 10 lakh rupees per individual. And the company or the employer provides that as a benefit. They subscribe to this particular credit line facility from Cube Health, and they provide it to their employees in addition to a group health insurance policy that they may provide. So typically a company would sign up to a 3 lakh rupee or a 5 lakh rupee insurance cover for all health expenses for an employee. In addition to that, they provide this up to 10 lakh rupee credit line. Now, what the individual does is basically that credit line is mobilized in the form of a card, which looks like your regular credit card, and it's accepted anywhere in the country, which accepts Visa, MasterCard, or RuPay. And it is accepted at any health and medical establishment anywhere in the country. And when I say anywhere, it could be Siliguri in Assam, Midnapur in West Bengal, or it could be Zahirabad in Telangana. It doesn't matter. As long as it is a health and medical establishment, the card will get accepted, which means you can't go to a retailer and buy a new cell phone. The card will not be honored. But the moment you swipe, instantly the Cube Health app essentially first pays the provider, which means like a regular card, they get an approved. It's exactly the same experience. And on your app, it shows up saying that, hey, you just swiped for 10,000 rupees. And would you like to convert this into an EMI? And you get a chance to convert it into an EMI of 369 all the way up to 24 months. So think of it like if you were to spend 1 lakh rupees on an eye LASIK surgery at an eye clinic, you simply swipe. The merchant got the 1 lakh rupees. On the app, it said 1 lakh rupees divided by 10,000 into 10 months, and you're good to go. Now, to answer your question,
do most health insurances cover something like a LASIK surgery?
So that's the unfortunate tragedy in our country, right? So either Indians are uninsured or they are underinsured. So most insurance policies have got tremendous inclusions and exclusions and the fine print that require you to have a PhD in figuring out what that document is, right? So a simple arithmetic is if your policy is 3 lakh rupees, your bed cost cannot be more than 3,000 rupees. So what ends up happening if you go to a hospital where the bed cost is 4,500, the balance you pay from your pocket, and so on and so forth. So what the Cube Health card pays for is everything that your insurance is not covering in one form or the other, either because the procedure is not included or it's not covering the full amount. Typically, just to give you a perspective, dental, eye, skin, wellness, cosmetics, maternity, all of these things are usually not covered under policy.
Yes.
And that becomes a natural area. So these are all planned elective procedures, as it is known in the industry. So to answer your last question about hidden costs, there are absolutely no hidden costs. It is absolutely 0% EMI. That experience is very similar to how you would buy a washing machine, like I mentioned earlier. There is a subscription fee. It's a nominal amount of 450 rupees per individual per year, which, as you can imagine, is a ridiculously low amount. And that subscription fee is paid for that individual by their employer. So they buy a 1 year subscription.
So what if people want to come on board without their employee being part of the entire arrangement?
Great question. Unfortunately, right now, we are not a retail product. We are a B2B2C. So you have to be part of an organization, either a corporation, or you could be part of an association, and so on and so forth. But that is the way we kind of distribute.
Okay, so that's one way to explore, expansion. Anyway, Vinay, you're sector agnostic VC firm, but do you think that the health tech sector is getting more and more of your attention nowadays and funding, perhaps if not now, then years to come, and which is something that perhaps is something that would be a logical way to go?
I mean, healthcare has been as, I think, important and as for so much time as the mankind is around, right?
Sorry?
I'm saying healthcare has been important since the time the mankind has been around.
Oh, yes.
As old as the man is, healthcare is required. Right from birth, you need a doctor to your death, you need a doctor certificate, right? And everything in between is handled by doctors. So that will remain a very high area of focus. And what we mean by that is both preventive and curative. We have taken a lot of bets on the preventive side, on the sports and fitness side, a lot on the esports side, on the health tech side. A couple of them have reached very large valuations and they raised Series A, Series B as well. So we will continue to look for innovative solutions which are being run by and executed by really great teams. that is our formula. We are dedicated to that formula, and we'll continue to invest behind that formula. We know it's a huge problem. It's a huge population, first of all, and therefore it's a huge problem. It is a problem not only for people who are rich, but it's also a problem for people who are poor. And I think there's a lot more that needs to be done in the country on the entire healthcare piece. I think we're still very old in the ways of working in healthcare, not just in India, but globally.
But off late, say the government has done, the central government has done, state governments are also doing a lot. There's these health schemes that have come up, lots of provisioning for the underprivileged, and even those who are not, but are lesser privileged as well. And then there's huge digitization projects being taken up, which will really help grow this ecosystem of health tech startups as well. Do you think it's an exciting space to be in?
Definitely, it is an exciting space to be in, whether it's Ayushman Bharat, whether it is digitization, whether it is the support that these startups are getting from the government. Healthcare is going to be a very exciting space, not just for next 2, 3, 5, but for the next 10 to 20 years.
Wonderful. Yes, it does look that way, and we're all trying to get fitter as well, using a lot of tech-enabled solutions. So that is another huge market that these startups could be looking at. Now, Rohan, just wanted to ask you if you're looking to confine yourself to diabetes, going forward, because it's a huge market in India. We're the diabetes capital of the world. And if you consider the entire world, if you go that way, you take your business outside the world as well, then it's another huge market at another level. Or are you looking to address, I think you do say that you're looking to address other lifestyle diseases as well, chronic diseases, which could even extend to hypertension and heart disease?
Great question. So the way it works, more than 30% of our current athletes are coming through word of mouth, and it continues to be that way. And there are so many word of mouth referrals that we currently let go of because either they are not type 2 diabetics, they are either hypertension, they have hypertension, they are suffering with PCOD. So that's one area within India, because if you've built a brand, and in healthcare, it's all about delivering outcomes and building trust about that. The customers will trust you to expand into other therapies as well. That's one thing that we intuitively thought, and we see that happening on ground every single day when we receive those referrals coming from the same family where we have served them before. But interestingly, in the last 6 months, what we have also seen is, as we have gone deeper into type 2 diabetes, and that in itself in India is a large and a complex problem. Almost half the expenditure in healthcare is on or because of type 2 diabetes in some way or the other. We have our organic traffic, majority of that is coming from outside India, and clearly entire content is around type 2 diabetes reversal, and that's a trend that we are seeing from Middle East, from Southeast Asia, and from US. They are coming and reading our content. So we have both the options open right now. I think it's all about the focus has to be firstly just what are the strides we can make towards a diabetes Mukt Bharat, and how quickly can we take those strides. So that's the focus.
Wonderful. That will be a huge problem solved if you can contribute to it. Now, Chris, how is the overall market and competition in your health tech subsector at the moment, and how do you think you stand out?
Medical finance as a product has been around for a long time. You have well-known personal loan, NBFCs, etc., that have been kind of doing this, but we call it desperation finance. Essentially, what they do is they partner with large hospitals, set up a booth, and hope that someone at the billing counter is not able to pay before they get a discharge, so that they can then tell them to go and fill out all those forms. It's a very high friction experience.
And they have high extortive interest rates as well.
Precisely. So we wanted to change that. And the way we differentiate, therefore, is first, we acquire the users who are essentially employed Indians. So you could be self-employed, you're working with the government, or you could be in a private enterprise. And that number keeps on rising. The employed Indians, we aggregate them through the organizations that they work for. And on the other side, we work with over 11,000 hospitals, clinics, and diagnostic centers across the country. Pretty much any branded and a credible health service provider that you can think of is already empaneled. In doing so, in that two-sided marketplace, we use capital as a means to lubricate that transaction. So, and that is the big differentiator between us and, let's say, a regular NBFC, and so on and so forth. And of course, there is the fact that we make it 0% no cost EMI.
Wonderful. And Vinay, now, I want to kind of delve into your experience as a VC and figure out, if there are other sectors that will drive India's startup ecosystem for the next decade or so, and why? And would it be because of their problem-solving potential, or for other reasons such as offering 10x, 20x, 30x returns to investors when they IPO, as has been happening very often these days?
I think you can't have a 10x, 20x, 30x till you solve the problem, right? I mean,
that's a given.
Have to be big to be solved, and then those 10x, 20x will come. So we definitely don't look at 10, 20x, 30x. They are a result of a process that we follow, and the process is to go after big problems being solved by great teams. So that's where we'll continue to focus. Now, if you look at big problems around, right? Environment and climate. Right now, if you look at AQI today in Delhi, it's 350 plus, while the safe limit is 150, right? So climate is going to be another big piece. And if you look at air pollution, I mean, when you eat food, it takes 6 hours to get assimilated in your body. Rohan will tell you that. When you drink water, it takes less than an hour, to go through the bladder. But when you breathe air, it takes seconds to get into your blood, right? So pollution and climate is going to be a big one over the next 5 years. The population is not going to accept this pollution level. We will need to move towards much better climates, less of global warming, a lot of electric vehicles, a lot of infrastructure around it. So I would probably hazard kind of a bet on, let's say, electric vehicle and climate change. A lot of startups coming in that. Waste management is another big one. All the electronics we buy, all of them go to waste. That needs to be solved as well. So one area other than healthcare, I would say, is this. The third, I think, is the mental health. If you kind of look at that deeply, that is the core of many of our physical health problems.
Correct. Correct.
Work on that.
We don't acknowledge it to that extent yet, but it's changing. That scenario is changing.
Yeah, like Rohan said, meditation is one of the 8 streams he follows. So I think these 2 or 3 are definitely going to be big. There are many others that will be big, but I will kind of just maybe pause on top 2 or 3.
Okay, great. Sounds great. I mean, you mentioned climate and the issue of climate change, and we already had Prime Minister Modi surprising everyone in Glasgow with that pledge to become net zero by the year 2070, and many other initiatives also, and I'm sure there will be a huge opportunity there also in terms of ensuring that people live healthier lives, and more power to you guys as well. And thank you so much for joining us today.